Coming up today on the Waine Train, look to keep ourselves inside of the European fight in the Premier League as we go to the Etihad and take on Manchester City, and off the back of that we take on Tottenham in the fourth round of the Carabao Cup. And also we've got a club record transfer fee out of Saudi Arabia for a player we actually wanted to sell. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 24 of the Waine Train here on Sean Does FM with Plymouth Argyle. I hope you're doing well. As I said during the intro, coming up today we take on Manchester City in the Premier League, a third versus fifth clash against the team so far who we have not beaten. And off the back of that and taking on West Ham at Ashton Gate, we then stay there to take on Tottenham Hotspur in the fourth round of the Carabao Cup. So if you're looking forward to all that coming up in today's episode, as well as a transfer that we'll go through at the start of January for a club record fee, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. Off the back of today's episode where we took on Liverpool in the Premier League and Leicester in the third round of the Carabao Cup. If you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. We've played 2 games since then and picked up decent results as was somewhat expected. First up, we did take on Aston Villa away from home. This one was a 1-1 draw. It was a game where we were actually slightly on the front foot, albeit it took us until quite late to get on the front foot, but thankfully we did get that goal for around about 15 minutes left. Morgan Whittaker, he puts one away from a Bischoff ball, but then only a few minutes later Lucas Digne grabs one back for Aston Villa just as we were about to drop back from a high defensive line, which I did try going to the second half since we were just struggling in terms of attack in the first. I was about to change that, but then that goal did get scored from Digne, and from there it just petered out to a 1-1 draw, and then probably a game that we could have won, especially based on our XG, but away from home at Villa Park against the team who last season were pretty good in the Premier League. They are in Europe this season. That's not a bad result at all. And off the back of that, a very entertaining game as we took on Ange Postecoglou's Sunderland, the one team we were expected to finish above in the Premier League this season. Lots of goals here. Got off to a pretty poor start in this game though. Rowe picked up a goal early for Sunderland at the 8-minute mark. Off the back of that though, Nikola Iliev gets one back from the penalty spot. Then makes it a double in the first couple of minutes of injury time, only for Good Johnson to follow up 1 minute later, and we somehow go into the sheds there with a 3-1 lead. Rowe there early in the second half makes it 3-2, but thankfully goals around the hour mark to Farias and a little bit later to Tom Bischoff give us a 5-2 lead, which really we never look like losing from there. Semedo comes on late and does grab a goal for Ange Postecoglou's men, but thankfully we do pick up a 5-3 win, albeit the fact that we can see 3 goals against Sunderland a little bit concerning in this game. We did stick with that standard defensive line, so 4 points in 2 games off the back of yesterday's episode, and it does mean we currently find ourselves in 5th on the Premier League table. If we can do a decent job in these upcoming games in that competition against Man City and West Ham, that second game probably a bit more likely than the first one, we will hopefully keep ourselves right in the fight to get some European football for the first time here at Plymouth Argyle. But off the back of those last couple of results and just the fact that we have been conceding a few more goals than I would like goal scoring wise this season, we are very good, but goals conceded about middle of the pack, so trying to figure out a way that we could improve that. Going into today's episode, we are going back to the higher defensive line because I don't think that standard one has helped us too much. Hopefully pushing up a bit further might just mean as well as having that step up more instruction turned off, because I think that might have been the one that affected us last season. Hopefully the higher defensive line might mean we're just a little bit more solid at the back, and we'll find out pretty shortly when we take on the likes of Erling Haaland and a Manchester City team who, to be fair, aren't doing all that well in the Prem so far this season. Liverpool so far are the runaway leaders, but certainly a tough test for us away from home at the Etihad. And one more thing that has happened off the back of yesterday's episode, transfer bids did come in for Callum Wright, and we accepted one of them from Saudi Arabia. Of course, these days, when our strikers aren't injured, like the Waine Train, still out for just a little bit. Should be back, though, for that second game of today's episode that we do play in the Cup. And we do take on Spurs, but usually wouldn't be featuring on our bench Callum Wright, and because of that, for a good price, I was willing to sell him going into the January transfer window, especially as he's a bit upset at his lack of playing time here at the moment, and also the fact he wants a new contract which being a fringe player, I didn't think we needed to give him, especially as his current contract goes through till 2028. He's off to Shabab Al Ali at the start of January for £14.5 million. That absolutely breaks the transfer record that we did set the last window with Ian Poveda for 8.5, and that's not a bad fee at all, considering that these guys signed him back at the start of their League One winning season for only £425,000 a week these days. Facundo Farias and Salawi are above him on that left-hand side, and also on the right, got the likes of Morgan Whittaker and Tony Springer. We could actually invest that money potentially in improving on either of those sides, albeit Morgan Whittaker so far has done a very good job for us, the player of the season. And both were played so far in the save, but Callum Wright, he will be leaving us when the January transfer window does open for £14.5 million. So it does mean going into that window, we do now have quite a bit of money to spend, and also we might be looking to get rid of Liberato Kakache. Unfortunately, still not looking like he will get that ESC turned into a work permit, and then he can't play, so we might have to let Liberato Kakache go. Ben might go back to being the only Kiwi in the squad here at Plymouth Argyle. But first up today, we do take on a Manchester City team who are in third at the moment. They are 4 points behind Liverpool. Liverpool definitely the team so far who have been on the front foot in the Premier League title race. Unfortunately, a late goal yesterday did mean they beat us 2-1 at Ashton Gate, but hopefully we might find a way here to give Manchester City a similar game, albeit with this one being at the Etihad. This will be a little bit tough, but a few tired players in our team does mean we're not quite putting out our ideal first 11 for this first game of today's episode. Starting off with Kane Kesler-Hayden at right back, because usually that would actually be Serginho Dest, but unfortunately he's quite injury prone at the moment. So Kesler-Hayden, he will get a run, albeit does need to perform. Otherwise, Serginho Dest might be the first choice for us off back of this game. Also, Lewis Gibson starts at centre back. Sebastian Hausner hasn't been doing too well for us there recently. Lewis Gibson, we're going to give a try in that central defender role alongside Jacob Graves. Also, Adam Randall comes in for Simon Som, another player quite injury prone at the moment. And as well as that, both our strikers are not the first choice ones. Pizarro obviously in for the Waine Train, and Good Johnson has found a decent patch of form in those last couple of games, so we'll keep him up front. Hopefully he can perform well. And also coming back from injury, Reece Williams is on the bench. Hopefully he might work his way back into some good match shape before we come back for that second game in the Carabao Cup against Tottenham Hotspur, because if we go quite deep in that competition, that's another way that we could potentially get some European football for next season if we can beat a team like Tottenham. That does just give us a bit of confidence, especially with some big teams already having been knocked out of that competition. We could be in with a sneaky chance of picking up our first trophy in the top flight here at Plymouth Argyle, but still a long way to go. And an early highlight here at the Etihad in the Premier League to City. They try and put that one near post. Thankfully, I think it was Bischoff who did head that one away. Now Silva, he finds Ake edge of the box. Phil Foden there does get off a shot, but thankfully Gibson, with some good defending, gets in the way of that one and keeps it 0-0. But Man City will keep the pressure on here from a corner, which Bernardo Silva takes shoot again, and he goes short this time, edge of the box to Ake. It falls very kindly to De Bruyne. Flashbacks there from yesterday's episode, how that ball did fall to Darwin Núñez late, but thankfully that's a big save from Luis Jr. Another battle here of the Brazilian goalkeepers. Yet again, they go to Ake on the edge of the box, but this time we press him nice and high, and we deal with that early flurry of danger there from Manchester City. So good early signs there with our high defensive line, albeit not sure how much difference that actually has, considering all those highlights did come from set piece, but they were on the attack there briefly. But thankfully, Kesler-Hayden does win that ball back for us coming up to the 15-minute mark. Now Graves plays a nice ball forward there to Good Johnson. Good short passing, and Morgan Whittaker from outside the box does take on a shot. He scored a few from that range so far this season. That one, though, just fizzes past the post, albeit I think Edison might have had it covered. But our first shot off in anger so far in this game, it is still 0-0 coming up to the half-hour mark. Man City definitely been the team on the front foot for most of this one so far, but thankfully we are keeping it level, getting close to the half-time, making our way now into the last 15 minutes. And City, they do have a throw in here, and they do look to keep the ball. Bernardo Silva starts to cut inside, plays that one out to Phil Foden, who we marked tightly, and good work that time from Morgan Whittaker to win the ball back. Now Randall with a shocking pass. Kovacic plays that one back to Rodrigo. Erling Haaland is slightly in behind, albeit he's put it away, but I'm pretty sure the assistant referee there flagged on the top side of the screen that went up, so I think he's offside. Hopefully that's the case, because otherwise that Randall pass could cost us big time, but thankfully he was offside. Good work there with that high defensive line. I think that time it might have made a bit of a difference, but there you can see Haaland as well as his other attacker up there were well and truly offside, so thankfully that goal does not count. We keep it at 0-0. Now Gibson and Graves under a bit of pressure at the back, but thankfully they eventually find Bischoff, and Gudjonsson now finds Salawi in a little bit of space. The Norwegian, nice ball out there, right hand side to Whitaker, controls it with his chest, puts that far post looking for Gudjonsson, doesn't quite find him, fizzes it back into the mix at that time. Pizarro in the air, but unfortunately Edison does claim that one, and this highlight is going to continue, but so far doing a decent job to keep this at 0-0. They pump this one deep. We do win it in Graves. He finds Bischoff, so might be a chance for us here again to try and build something up. So Lowy does his man there and starts to cut inside, plays that one forward to Gudjonsson. Tight angle will beat Edison, and he was on side, so we take a 1-0 lead here at the Etihad just past the half-hour mark, and this could be a big couple of points or point that we might pick up from this game if we can keep things tight at the back. Sarawi looking dangerous early in this game down that left-hand side, picks out Gudjonsson, who, as I said, has actually found a good little patch of form of late when coming in for Nikola Iliev and also for the Waine Train when Pizarro has been tied, and also he's picked up a minor injury of late as well. But that's a big goal because at the moment that actually sends us inside of the top four above Manchester City, and that's going to be the scoreline going in to half-time. There's only one player out there on a 6.5. That is Bischoff, so I don't think we actually need to change too much going in to the second half of this one. We'll tell the guys it's going well. Hopefully they can do a little bit better and maybe try and put this game to bed, albeit against a team like Manchester City. That might be asking a little bit too much, but a good first half for us there, albeit maybe I've spoken too soon, because right from the restart, it is a highlight here in favour of the home team. Erling Haaland does start to make his way forward. Thankfully, Gibson rather fortunately does clear that one, but it does go back to Man City to build from the back. We put the Ake under a bit of pressure, but unfortunately good short passing at a high tempo, and they keep hold of the ball. Now Sarawi looks to mark Bernardo Silva, does a decent job. It goes back to Stones. Randall with a good foot in there though, but unfortunately can't quite find Gudjonsson with that pass, and Ake now is on the ball. Vardiol out to Phil Foden down that left-hand side of Cities. He starts to make his way forward, picks out Haaland, and thankfully that's a pretty weak shot for a long highlight, not too far away, but not too much power on it, and we keep it at 1-0 in our favour just off the back of the restart, albeit not too long later. And there is a highlight here again for City. Gutierrez on a 6.4. That's becoming a bit of a concern. Haaland gets a shot off there. Thankfully, Graves does come up with a block, but Miguel Gutierrez just a little bit iffy so far here at Plymouth Argyle. To be fair, that was also the case with Reece Williams last season. In the end, he's turned out to be quite a good centre-back. Ethan Laird can come on for him at left-back for this one, just wanting a bit of cover on both sides. So that's why he's on the bench over someone like Wilson Esbrand. Also, of course, he can't play against his parent club, but De Bruyne plays that one back into the mixer, and it might be a penalty. I thought that highlight was just going to die out, but unfortunately, right off the back of making that sub off the back of the corner, we have given away a penalty. Morgan Whitaker brings down Kevin De Bruyne, and it's a chance here for City to draw this one back up. Hopefully, Luis Jr. can make a save. If he bothers trying, that's not great there from our Brazilian goalkeeper. And Erling Haaland, to be fair, he might have beaten him anyway, but at least dive, mate, because that's not much of an effort in goal, especially for a slightly chipped one, and it's 1-1 here off the back of that penalty. Be fair, stats-wise, Man City definitely deserves something from this game, but that does feel just a little bit harsh, that penalty coming off the back of a substitution. Yet again, that does seem to be something that happens quite a bit in FM24, and now we make our way towards the last half hour of this game. A couple of players are only going fairly, so I think we're going to make a couple of subs here. We're going to try Nikola Iliev in place of Damian Pizarro. Interesting to see there too. I actually left the pressing forward on attack because Gudjonsson did play there in the last game. Usually that would be support. Also, Tony Springer could come on at right wing, and John Buckley, he will come on for Tom Bischoff. Just going to take off the players here who are struggling just a little bit with Gudjonsson down that pressing forward role. I think we'll leave that on attack. And now Kane Kesler-Hayden has picked up an injury, which is definitely not ideal considering the only reason we didn't play Serginho Dest was because he was quite injury prone and Kesler-Hayden wasn't, and Ethan Laird already on the field at left back, albeit we do have Jacob Graves who can cover left back, so Williams will come on we'll just shuffle this around so Ethan leads on his more natural side at right back, and Jacob Graves, he can do a shift for us the rest of this game at left back. So that means that's now all our subs used. 1-1 here, about to make our way into the last 20 minutes. Hopefully that injury not too serious, albeit, as I said, I think Serginho Dest now definitely going to get a run as the first choice right back in the first team. Now Rodrigo from the edge of the box will burn that one low to the ground through our defence, and Luis Jr., honestly, I don't quite know how he's on a 7.5 apart from that early save he did make from that deflected De Bruyne shot, because that was another pretty average effort in goal. And Man City, they strike twice in the second half. It's a powerful shot, but still not that far away from our goalkeeper. They make it 2-1. Stats-wise, they definitely deserve to be winning this game, but it does feel a little bit harsh off the back of us taking that 1-0 lead earlier, now making our way into the last 10 minutes. And I think it's time for us here to go all that attack in terms of our wing backs and also our ball wing midfielder. He can go on to support, and we'll see if that can get anything going for us here late in this game, and maybe we can find a way to pinch a point from the Ehad. To be fair, this is not an unexpected result, but after having a 1-0 lead going into half-time would be a little bit disappointing if we did throw it away, and now going into injury time, albeit 7 minutes of it, will tell our guys to be a bit more expressive. But unfortunately, time is ticking down. But as I say that, a throw-in with only 3 minutes left, Springer, he finds Buckley right on the edge of the box, back out there to Ethan Laird these days at right back, makes his way forward, squares that one for Good Johnson. He'll beat Edison. He picks up a double, and that will make it 2-2 off the back of that. We'll tell our guys to just calm things down a little bit, hopefully try and hold on here to pick up something from this game. We could stay attacking, but I think a point at the Etihad is not a bad result at all. We will leave Good Johnson on attack because he does suit that role a little bit better than support, and hopefully those couple of changes that we did make can help us pick up a draw from this game. Also, we'll tell our guys to time waste some time, so hopefully no more highlights in this game, especially in favour of Manchester City. But thankfully, we go all out attack late, and it does somewhat work. Buckley plays that one back to Ethan Laird. He gets on the run, beats his man there down that near side, pulls that one back for Good Johnson. Too much power on that shot, beats Edison at the near post. 2-2, and to be fair, I don't think that result is too undeserved, because we have shown a little bit here away from home, despite the fact that City, as you'd expect, have been on the front foot for most of it. But that is a pretty good result. Hopefully that injury to Kesler Hayden is not too serious. We might go forward and check in on that one shortly. But Luis Jr., I thought actually had a pretty poor game, despite the fact he got a 7.4. But thankfully Good Johnson picked up goals in both halves. One early to give us a 1-0 lead, unfortunately. Then we gave away a penalty through Morgan Whittaker, which Haaland did put away, and Rodri put one away not too long off the back of that from outside the box. But thankfully, all that attack late, and we do grab a goal through Good Johnson to make it 2. Also, it does mean we are still inside of a European spot. Hopefully, we can pick up a win against West Ham before we come back for that second game in the Carabao Cup against Tottenham Hotspur. Both those games at Ashton Gate as well. So hopefully that might help us out. But Kane Kesler Hayden will be missing for a little while. He won't feature for the rest of today's episode with a twisted ankle, albeit the Waine Train should be back. When you next see us, we'll go forward, take on West Ham before we come back and play Spurs. And we are back about to take on Tottenham in the Carabao Cup, and here are the highlights from our Premier League game at home against West Ham. And as you can see, immediately from the kickoff here, Salawi continues his good performance from that previous game against City. He sets up Good Johnson, who was playing very well to give us a nice early 1-0 lead, and only a few minutes later, Buckley, with a deflected shot, it looks like, puts that one away to give us a 2-0 lead after only 3 minutes. And then at the 10-minute mark, Sarawi from outside the box fizzes that one past Areola, and West Ham didn't know what hit them early in this one. They go 3-0 down inside 10 minutes. Shortly off the back of that, unfortunately, we do concede one here. Gutierrez missing that header, and Bowen puts it away, so he's still struggling a little bit here at Plymouth Argyle in the early days, but thankfully that didn't last too long, that little comeback from West Ham. Only a few minutes later, Good Johnson, he puts that one away into the bottom right corner. That was actually where the goal scoring stopped, so all the action there in the first 20 minutes of that game, but yet another Good Johnson double helps us to a 4-1 win over West Ham. As you can see, that time, definitely the team on the front foot, and we picked up a deserved victory, although the 4-1 scoreline might just be a little bit flattering, but it does look like that higher defensive line's helping us a little bit in terms of our defence. That's 3 goals now we've conceded in 2 games. Was a lot worse with that standard defensive line in those games before that. And what that does for the Premier League table is we've snuck our way into the top 4 hopefully we can find a way to stay there before we come back for tomorrow's episode, which I think will be at some stage during December. But as you can see, Good Johnson is on absolute fire at the moment, one of the highest average ratings in the Premier League, and also is up in third on the top goal scorer chart. So hopefully he can continue that form, and might have just earned himself a little spell there as the first choice advance forward on that other side to Ben Waine over Nikola Iliev, and he is wanted as well by Everton. I don't think we'll be selling him on his current form, but 5 goals in 5 games, 2 player of the matches. He could be a sneaky shout for player of the month in the Premier League for October, but hopefully he can continue it here as we're about to take part in the 4th round of the Carabao Cup. We're going to take on a Tottenham team who so far we have not beaten, and they are these days managed, of course, by Roberto De Zerbi, but at Ashton Gate off the back of some encouraging recent form since we have gone to that higher defensive line as well. I'm hopeful we can pick up a decent result there. You can see in terms of goals scored these days, we are now the best team. Our goals conceded just improving ever so slightly, albeit still early days to see how that higher defensive line is affecting that. Now, unfortunately, one more injury off the back of that first game in today's episode. Now, Lewis Gibson's out with sprained ankle ligaments, albeit Reece Williams can now play a little bit longer, so that does kind of counteract that. So I do think we're actually a little bit stronger these days at centre back than we were going into that first game of today's episode, albeit we are still giving some players a rest for this game in the Carabao Cup, because our Premier League hopes, I think there's more likelihood there that we can finish into a European spot for a top 7 finish there than trying to win a competition like the Carabao Cup. But most changes, they do come in defence for this one. Mike Cooper in goal being the Cup goalkeeper. Also Ethan Laird at right back, just giving Serginho Dest a bit of a rest, of course, with no Kesler Hayden. Also, Williams will this time partner Jacob Graves. We've got Walker Esbrand coming back at left back, of course, seeing as he couldn't play that first game against his parent club. And also Randall in that ball wing midfielder role still over Simon Son, who is injury prone off the back of that win over West Ham. And also we've got Kakache and the Waine Train back on the bench for this one. Hopefully we can give Louis some minutes, and also the Waine Train, he can feature at some stage during this game as he makes his way back from that injury, because that would be good. We can get him fit enough so he can start featuring in some full games, considering this is the Waine Train so far this season for him has been a little bit injury affected. But we'll get things underway here in this 4th round tie in the Carabao Cup. Early corner, it is being taken here by Son. They'll put this one into the mixer yet again, going to the edge of the box. Scheuberg, he takes the shot. Thankfully, we put a block on that one. He gets it back though, and that goes very close. Actually comes off the top of the crossbar. Thankfully, it's just off target, and off the back of that, there is a chance for us here to play out from back. Wilson Esbrand nicely rested off the back of that Man City game where he couldn't feature, and now Good Johnson played that one forward to Randall. Now Whitaker will bury that one home. Very similar position to where he tried to score early in that Man City game, but this time beats Vicario in goal, and that is a brilliant start. And we take a 1-0 lead here early in this Carabao Cup tie. Good work there from that goal kick off the back of that decent chance to Scheuberg from the corner, but Whitaker just gets past his man there, takes on the shot, and that time hits the target, gets it past Vicario, and we take a nice early 1-0 lead here with our first shot of target somewhat against the run of play, albeit now it looks like we are on the front foot. Bischoff takes on the free kick there. Don't actually mind at that time as we were set up for a routine, but that one just off target. But certainly trying to put the foot down here as Good Johnson. He plays the ball into the mix there, I think it was, and it's actually Sarawi who goes down inside the box for a challenge. I think that was from Dorrington, and this might be a chance for us here to make it 2-0 very early from the spot. Now, no Waine Train, so not too sure who's taking this penalty. It is going to be his replacement, and Damian Pizarro. He looks to go top left, but to be fair, that's a pretty good save from Vicario, albeit he was still on his feet. So I'm not too sure if he actually stayed on his line there before that penalty was taken, but still, that could be a costly save against us. Now, Randall on the volley from the subsequent corner, that one not too far away, but certainly putting the pressure on Spurs here to try and make it 2-0, but unfortunately, we do miss from the spot. Hopefully, that doesn't prove too costly. And good work that time from Ethan Laird. That's a really nice link-up from Pizarro. Forward to Good Johnson. Maybe should have waited there for someone to help him out in attack. He tries to take that shot on from outside the box. It does go over the bar, but this is an encouraging start off back of those early corners that Tottenham Hotspur were getting, as we're now about halfway through the first half, and we are putting most of the pressure on our opposition here at Ashton Gate. And just off the back of praising our guys, there is a throw-in in our favour. Ethan Lee gets the ball back after giving that one, I think that was, to Pizarro. Hopefully he can recover from that missed penalty. Otherwise, might be a chance for us here to give the Waine Train some action in the second half. But Laird makes his way down that right-hand side. Of course, he came on and got that big assist for that late goal to grab a point at Manchester City. Now Whittaker starts to cut inside, floats that one far post, doesn't quite find anyone, and Lo Celso here might get a chance to get Tottenham on the counter-attack. Richarlison plays that one out to Bentancur, trying to intercept that, and now a chance here for Spurs to get in behind us just a little bit, but we mark up well. Madison squares that one nicely for Reguilon. That's a big chance. No one picked him up, but thankfully that one's off target, so it stays 1-0. Spurs are definitely creating chances in this first half. We had that good burst off the back of grabbing that first goal, and really should have grabbed a second from the penalty spot. We continue to put some good pressure on them here this time from a corner with about 10 minutes left in the first half. Good Johnson gets his head on the end of that one. What you'd expect from our tall Icelandic striker, but unfortunately it's just off target, so still only 1-0, but we continue to pile on the pressure. Now a throw-in, looking near far post, it's punched away from Vicario. It falls to Saloui, but unfortunately he can't quite hit the target, so lots of chances for us here to try and grab a cushion goal, but unfortunately not quite happening as we make our way into 3 minutes of added time, and unfortunately that is what the scoreline is going to be. Quite happy with how we're playing. It would have been really nice if we did grab a cushion goal, but with Pizarro only being on a 6.5, he missed the penalty. It's time to bring the Waine Train on. Let's hope that he can help us put this one away during the second half, but that was a pretty encouraging first half. Hopefully, Tottenham continue to miss the target with their chances so far yet to have a shot on target in this game, and we can just put one more away to hopefully give ourselves enough of a buffer to go through to the next round of the Carabao Cup. Liverpool no longer in this competition. They surprisingly got knocked out by Luton Town, so there's some interesting teams left in this competition. Not too many big names, and Son as well is on an orange injury out there for Spurs, so that could be interesting for the remainder of their season. Now Richarlison does get in behind, but thankfully he's Richarlison and he misses the target by an absolute mile, but Spurs so far still struggling to hit the target as we get stuck in to the second half. Thankfully still holding on to our 1-0 lead, but they do have a free kick here. Richarlison plays that one forward that time to Pedro Porro. Don't smack talk the opposition, Sean, because Richarlison, he picks up an assist. Cooper gets a decent chunk on that. It's pretty poor from us defensively off the back of a free kick, but unfortunately Porro there just gets inside of Wilson S. Brandon Cooper. Can't quite tip that one far enough away from that top right corner, and they make it 1-1, albeit another highlight here immediately from the restart. Hopefully we can go down the other end and try and grab that goal. It looked like we were going to score during the first half. We just knock it about here at the back. Poor pass that time. I think that was from Bischoff, and it is now Tottenham who try and get going and try and pick up a quick fire double, which would feel pretty harsh based on the run of play so far. Richarlison plays that one back to Dorrington, of course the player who gave away that penalty, which we did not put away. Now Højbjerg, he plays a nice ball forward there to Porro, who was already looking for a double. Edge of the box here, thankfully we start to mark him a bit tighter. Højbjerg in there for Bentancur, good chance, comes off the post, but Graves brings down the Richarlison, who is making sure the referee knows all about it. Get up, you absolute sook. And unfortunately, it is indeed a penalty. Jacob Graves, he picks up a yellow card. Now, hopefully, they miss theirs like we did in the first half. Lo Celso sends Cooper the wrong way and drills it home for his first goal of the season. And we are starting to bowl this game, I think it's fair to say, against Tottenham, because that first half, we definitely should have grabbed a second goal to try and put this game to bed. But unfortunately, Spurs, they get a goal and then we give away a penalty and they make it 2-1 XG-wise. Now they are on top of us, albeit that might be somewhat expected with that penalty that we did give away. And Ethan Laird's on a 6.3, so I think we're going to take him off here for Sebastian Hausner. It does mean that Jacob Graves will have to stay out there on a 6.5, which is a little bit of a risk, but probably worth it with Ethan Laird on that 6.3. Also checking in on some other player ratings. And I think for now that's the only sub that we need to do with still a half hour left. Hopefully just bringing someone fresh on at right back might mean we go a little bit better. Also just there looking if Ben Waine can do a decent job for us on attack instead of support. Not quite as suited to that as Good Johnson is, but shortly off the back of that, a couple of players do go down to Red Hearts. Tony Springett, he can come on for Morgan Whittaker at right wing, and also Buckley in place of Bischoff those two guys have been fierce so far. And right off the back of that, now it's Sulawi who is down to a red hard. I think with this being the Carabao Cup, will play things safe, and Facundo Farias can cut on for him. So there'll be all our subs used. We might now chuck Waine onto attack just to see if that might help us, like it did with Johnson late in that Man City game. But at the moment, it does look like we are somehow going to get beaten here by Tottenham. I say somehow. The penalties, that has been a difference maker. We couldn't put ours away. Tottenham put their one away, and they do have a throw in here to try and put this game to bed, which would, as I said, feel just a little bit harsh. Richarlison on the ball plays that one to Pedro Porro, who so far has been the thorn on our side. Plays that one back to Bentancur on that yellow card. We mark him tightly. They put that one in the mixer yet again for Richarlison. He gets opened, but misses the target. We should just leave him wide open because he is awful. But now we're making our way into the last 10 minutes, and it's time for us here to go a bit more attacking. Also, we might just try here, because it's a cup game, to play for set pieces, just because our assistant does keep bringing it up, and also is something that the board does want us to do. So we'll try that late and see if that does anything before we do enter the added time in this game. But so far, doesn't look like we're up to a heck of a lot. So I think it's time for us now to do as our assistant recommends, which is the opposite of what he recommended pre-game, and turn off play for set pieces. And now it's time for us to try and go wide in attack, and also we'll tell our guys to be more expressive, and hopefully that might mean we can grab a late goal in this game like we did against Manchester City. But it's not the case, and unfortunately, off the back of a very good first half performance, we didn't quite grab as many goals as we needed in that one. Pedro Porro, an absolute thorn on our side in the second half of that game. He grabs a goal, and shortly off the back of that, helps them earn a penalty, which Lo Celso does put away that Pizarro one that was saved by Vicario in the first half. It comes back to haunt us, and we are out of the Carabao Cup in the fourth round. It's a home loss as well, which is not ideal. 2-1 against Tottenham Hotspur, but it does mean up until January we can switch our focus entirely back onto the Premier League. So unfortunately, kind of bottled things there in that second game of today's episode against Tottenham, which is a little bit ironic because Tottenham are usually the bottling ones, as kind of shown with the efforts there of Richarlison in front of goal. But unfortunately, they are through to the next round of the Carabao Cup. We lose out 2-1. Also interesting to note that attendance for that game, very poor, which is a bit strange considering that we have Plymouth Argyle. I know we're playing away from home, but still, that's a bit low of an attendance figure considering that we can fill out up to 20-odd thousand these days at Ashton Gate, only getting 8,000 through the gates, playing a pretty strong team in Tottenham Hotspur. A little bit concerning. Hopefully, though, that's nothing too serious to worry about, especially now that we have been knocked out of that competition. We are now fourth in the Premier League, but unfortunately, just does kind of hurt that being knocked down in the fourth round of the Carabao Cup. There you can see the other results. As I said, it was Liverpool who got knocked out actually by Bournemouth, not Luton Town. Luton Town, they pushed Man City close. Chelsea are also through the next round, as well as Crystal Palace, West Ham, Everton, and Arsenal. So be fair, not too many big teams left in that competition. The ones that are left, we do know that we can pick up results against in the likes of Man City and especially Chelsea. So that's a bit unfortunate. It felt like there we had a sneaky chance of going quite deep in that Carabao Cup, but unfortunately just not quite good enough in front of goal in that Spurs game, and we are out of the Carabao Cup for this season. But it does mean we can focus back on the Premier League, where we do find ourselves all the way up inside of the top four. But that will do it for today's episode. Callum Wright going for a club record transfer fee off to Saudi Arabia at the start of January, and also we pick up a draw against Man City, back it up with a good win over West Ham before that slightly disappointing loss there against Spurs in the Carabao Cup. If you enjoyed today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. We'll come back tomorrow at some stage during December, not too sure exactly what games for yet, especially because cup competitions, the fifth round draw hasn't taken place for the EFL Cup yet. That could jumble some of this around. But of course, being December, we are playing quite a bit of football. Manchester United's the game that I obviously want to come back for, but it is quite a way away, and we'll see how far I get in between now and when I do need to record that episode for tomorrow. So I think we'll come back at some stage during December, just not too sure who for. Probably not Tottenham, as we just played them, but pretty much any of those other teams we could take on. To be fair, Brentford, another team doing a decent job in the Premier League at the moment. Ideally, might be them and Man United, albeit those games do look a little bit too far apart, but will come back at some stage during December for tomorrow's episode, the last one of this week. So until then, thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.